Good morning. In yesterday's video, I made the case that the Catholic Church of all the Christian churches best fulfills the mark of apostolicity. That is, that Christ's true church must be one, holy, Catholic, and apostolic. And mostly I focused on how seriously the Catholic Church takes apostolic succession and how clearly we see a hierarchy in continuation with and very much looking like the hierarchy that Christ himself established. So we see this clearly in the Catholic Church. But the other part of this that I wanted to focus on was that the Catholic Church is apostolic because she faithfully, through her apostolic lineage, passes on the apostolic faith. And I wanted to focus on a couple examples of this because these are things that Jesus said clearly and unambiguously, where the Catholic Church pretty much stands alone among the Christian churches in being faithful to Christ's unambiguous teaching. The first of these would be a moral matter, and that is whether divorce is permissible. In Luke, Jesus couldn't be clearer, I would think, regarding his position on divorce. He says that under Moses, God had permitted divorce due to the hardness of men's hearts. But I tell you, what God has joined, let no man cast asunder. There's nothing ambiguous about Jesus's teaching. It's a hard teaching is what it comes down to. And Christendom was united around the fact for a millennium plus that divorce is never permissible because Christ was so clear on this teaching. Now, of course, there are reasons that a man and woman may have to separate, that they cannot live together, and there is nothing in the Catholic teaching that divorce is not permitted that keeps a couple from separating or even undergoing a legal divorce in order to separate their assets. But the notion for Catholics is that marriage is a sacrament and it is indissoluble. And what God has joined, to take Christ at his words, no man can cast asunder. So there we have a clear and unambiguous teaching of Christ that the Catholic Church continues to hold, and as far as I am aware, among all the Christian churches, is unique in holding, because although the Protestant churches may discourage divorce, they may look unfavorably upon divorce, I am not aware of Protestant churches that are actually fully accepting of the teaching of Christ. The Catholic Church stands alone. So there's an example of a hard teaching that the church gets criticized for, but that where you see clearly the church being faithful, fully faithful to Christ's words. That's what it means to retain the apostolic faith in the face of a hostile, secular world where the worldly temptation, the worldly way differs. The church withstands that criticism. The second example I wanted to focus on was theological. Another place in the Gospels where Christ couldn't be clearer is in John chapter 6, where Christ says that unless you eat of my flesh and drink of my blood, you shall not have life within you. This is radical. Because Christ is saying, basically, you must eat of his flesh and drink of his blood. And there's nothing ambiguous about this. It's so clear, in fact, that John relates that many who heard Christ utter these words left Jesus at that moment. They went away because they could not comprehend what he was saying. And there's that poignant moment where Jesus turns to his apostles who are with him, Peter, among them, and says, "Will you leave me also?" And Peter says those words, which are the only words we can have when we have such an unambiguous teaching of Christ that we can't understand. "To whom else would we go, Lord? You have the words of everlasting life. And for the Catholic Church, when we stand with Christ in these things which are so countercultural, what else can we say if we are to be true to the apostolic faith but those words of Peter? The Catholic Church does do that, and she's alone in doing so. That's it for today. God bless.